presence of prophets. Not that many of the interfaith activists in that tent would have used that phrase to describe themselves, of course. Prophet means different things in different faith traditions, and some don't have a concept of it at all. But it was one of my early introductions to what many activists call the prophetic tradition of social justice activism, a spiritual lineage that comprises a myriad of movements and an even greater number of faiths. It's a phenomenon I would later come to associate with the religious left, an amorphous, ever-changing group of progressive faith-based advocates, strategists, and political operatives. I was surprised to find representatives of this movement at Occupy. But I shouldn't have been. And not just because I was tipped off that the tent existed before I got there. As I would learn over the next several years of reporting on the religious left for Think Progress and Religion News Service, these activists, and others like them, have been a core component of progressive social movements throughout American history, often rising to meet moral crises in times of need. Far from being a historical relic, the religious left I have come to know exerts growing influence on modern democratic politics, be it by staging massive protests, leading legislative fights, training future candidates, or pressuring political leaders. The religious left is the beating heart of modern progressivism. Although rarely acknowledged by members of either major political party, it is one of the left's most secret of weapons, and has the potential to impact U.S. politics for years to come. This audiobook is an attempt to unearth some pieces of that secret. Such a task requires digging into the history, theology, and strategy used by religious left leaders to exert influence on their fellow progressives. My intention is not to tell an exhaustive history of this coalition of coalitions and its historical progenitors. For those seeking such a history, see historian Albert J. Roboteau's similarly named American Prophets, 7 Religious Radicals and Their Struggle for Social and Political Justice. Rather, my aim is to home in on the iterations that are having the greatest impact in modern politics, and explain where they came from. The result, I hope, is the story of a movement that is fundamentally different from the similarly named religious right, one that makes sense only when examined through the overlapping lenses of protest, policy, and politics. But first, a quick note about terms. I use the phrase religious left a lot in this audiobook, but many people who may fall under that category, including leaders I profile in these pages, actively reject the term. A running joke I've had with editors for years is that one of the hallmarks of a religious left leader is vehement opposition to the phrase religious left. Look, I'm a journalist, not a comedian. Still, listeners should not assume, unless otherwise noted, that people who fall into that category necessarily embrace the term. When appropriate, I do my best to list most of their objections to the epithet. Some see it as too limiting, and others don't like the association with the religious right, whose tactics and approach to politicized faith they hold in contempt. Still others quibble over the finer definitions of the words themselves. A political moderate's left is often not the same as a democratic socialist, or for that matter, a hard-charging conservatives. Political scientists also spar over the exact borders of these ideological camps, some of which have morphed in profound ways in just the past 3 years. Nevertheless, I use liberal, progressive, and left relatively interchangeably in this book when referring to those who mostly, but not always, fall in and around the Democratic Party, if for no other reason than that is how the terms are used in popular political discourse, the water in which these activists and operatives swim. Moreover, as any number of scholars have made clear to me in classrooms and over the course of my career, the category of religion is hotly contested. Different thinkers use different criteria to classify what is or isn't a faith community, and many reject the idea that such a thing can ever be fully defined in the first place. I have my own thoughts on this matter, but I strive to rely on the terms that faith communities use to describe themselves. Thus, Native American spirituality instead of religion, acknowledging that preferences can differ even among individual believers within the same tradition. And as this is a larger than...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.